just, or felt like I had to be a different version of myself and, wherever I was. And now I feel like what you see is what you get kind of everywhere. I remember the first time I listened to the shamanic drumming, I was like, it was almost foreboding. It was like, ooh, if I go there, what's going to happen? Because there's a fear too of like, if I get well and I get healed and I find out what I am supposed to do, will I have the courage to do it? Born to freak. A salty primer for irrepressible humans. We will not be repressed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. Buckle up for a very fun time we have planned for you. Here we have Dr. Sarah Bamford Seidelmann. She's a fourth generation physician turned shamanic healer, shamanic mentor, life coach, author, all the things. And best for this channel, she enjoys shenanigans. So it was an obvious invite. So Sarah, I will tell them where we met, but first, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much, Jillian. I'm so thrilled to be here.
And I will want to share that I had the opportunity to meet Sarah during my training at Martha Beck's Wayfinder Life Coach training program, where she is an incredible coach with a radiant energy that just called to me. So ever since then, it's been very joyful. And I have the honor of working with her on shamanic healing right now, which is a deeper level of healing than I've ever experienced. And I just really invite people to look into her work. And I'm just so grateful for every connection that I have with Sarah. So very excited to share her with you today.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Thank you. And I know that we had so much to talk about. So in order to kind of try to make sure I don't keep you for years, I really wanted to share with the audience today your journey, which you nicely chronicled in a very good book called Swimming with Elephants, which is about your unexpected pilgrimage from physician to healer. So would you mind sharing your story with the audience?
I would love to. Yes. So I was a pathologist, fourth generation doctor. My dad was a doctor. My grandpa was a doctor, my great grandpa. And so I think maybe I fell into that. I always wanted to be a doctor, but I had other things too that I was interested in. Like I wanted to be a professional chef and a TV anchor and,
Yeah.
But eventually I did choose medicine and practice pathology for a long time. And pathology, for those of you who don't know what that specialty is, most people don't get to know their pathologists, but we're the ones sitting behind the microscope. We're what I think of myself as a disease hunter. And so that's what I was paid to do, was to sit and look at biopsies. And if you had something removed in surgery, the pathologist is the one who decides whether your tumor is benign or malignant, et cetera. And if the margins are clear and all that kind of stuff. And I loved that work. It was so much fun and so challenging and wonderful, until slowly over time, I realized that I wasn't as interested in, what makes people sick and what makes people ill as much as what makes people well. Mm-hmm. And it kind of happened to me. I'd go to breast cancer conference. I'd present all the newly diagnosed cases of breast cancer every week. And I remember, occasionally one of the social workers and the nurses would raise their hand. It was a room just packed. And so you had the oncologist, the radiation oncologist, all the surgeons, everybody was there. And, somebody would raise their hand and go, this patient, her family's not supportive. Her husband is abusive and refuses to transport her to chemotherapy. And I'd think, oh my gosh, I wonder what, if we could have circled the wagons of support around this woman, like say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, like, would she still have this disease? My mind started to wonder, what is it that prevents, what prevents cancer from forming? I mean, just these, which I knew were kind of insane thoughts, because I thought, well, I can't do you can't do a reverse double blind study like that. But eventually, Jillian, I found a life coach. Mm-hmm. Even though I was in Duluth, Minnesota, we're Norwegian up here. We don't need a lot of life coaching, but I thought, I don't think I need a psychiatrist, but I'm really struggling at work to find, I just wasn't as engaged. And when you're not engaged in pathology, it's no bueno, because you you're dealing with stuff that is very important, right? And I mean, all things are important in life, but in particular, people's lives were at risk if I wasn't, completely engaged. So hired a life coach. That really helped me. I ended up allowing myself eventually to go part-time. So I freed up a little time. And I always recommend people, like, if you're burned out, like, how can you create a little space for yourself? Which I did. And eventually I took a sabbatical for 3 months, and that required like selling our house. It took a while because we were like, like a lot of physicians, we had, we left after, training. We were like so sick of having no money. We just went out and like got a big house and, all these things. So anyway, took the sabbatical, and it turned out really to be quite radical, because during that time, I just started spending a lot of time outdoors. And I'll just sidebar the fact that my husband's also a physician. We had 4 kids, and I thought it was going to be the greatest thing ever to be home for the summer with my kids. OMG, like it was such a wake up call. Like I was so crabby because not only was my career in complete like chaos in my mind anyway, not in any way professionally, but in my head, I was like, what am I going to do? I don't like this anymore. And it was really hard because my kids, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. So anyway, I started spending a lot of time out in the woods and was very confused and very kind of is difficult. Like, as we all know, when you're kind of in the chaos, or you're going through this kind of an experience, it's very challenging. But I ran into this old concept. I was at a bookstore one day, and you know how bookstores just sort of fall off the shelf at you. And right next to Martha Beck's books, you and I are both big fans of Martha's, right next to that, there was this book by Ted Andrews about the messages of wild animals. And I picked it up and I'm like flipping through it. I'm like, what is this? Like, their animals could give you a message. I mean, I was like flabbergasted, but I was like also kind of curious. So I bought the book and I started reading it that night, and it just fascinated me. And I'd always been a real fan of animals. Like I was one of those kids who watched Marlon Perkins or like Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom every Sunday night with a fervor that, really could not be compared to anything. It was just like so exciting. And I was like, well, this seems completely insane, but I have no better ideas or other ways to figure this out. Like I couldn't figure it out logically, what I was supposed to do with this problem of being disengaged. And so I started to kind of see like, okay, maybe there might be a wild animal as a message for me. And the first animal that really struck me was this taxidermied walrus in a store in our downtown. And I remember thinking, okay, walrus. And this thing was massive. It was like huge. It had these massive tusks. I mean, it was very arresting. And I was like, Mr. Walrus, you can drop your message at me anytime. Like I am ready for it. Like, and I just kind of hung out in the gift store for a while. Like nothing really happened, but I was like, this walrus seems really important. So I was like, I started watching walrus videos on YouTube, as one does. And there was a massive cluster of walruses out on Round Island where they seem to hang out these days. And I just started observing that they're very like comfortable in their own skin, shall we say? Like they're just like flopping around on the beach. There's like, there is no tension. There is no like, geez, I should get on the treadmill again. I'm, getting a little, there's no stress. They're not like, oh, the glands are running out and all these kind of things. And I thought, okay, interesting. And then I learned that they're apex predators, which I didn't know that, meaning they have no competition in the natural world. Once in a while, a polar bear will tangle with them, but not so much. It usually ends badly, so they avoid each other.
Wow.
So like, I put those two things together to try to cobble together a message. So what I got out of that was like, if I could manage to relax and be myself completely, I too might have no competition in the natural world should I decide to take on a new career, such as writing or life coaching. And that idea kind of excited me. I was like, that rang true. Like,
yes. Mind blown.
Yeah. And it lasted, you know how it goes. These profound messages for about 24 hours. I was excited about it. But then, then the fears strike in, touch in again. But I started really paying attention to the animals. And so I was noticing like any animal, I would be like, there goes a squirrel across the telephone line. And I'd stop and think, and I'd be like, what is it trying to tell me? And it's sort of like you just kind of try to ask yourself, like, okay, here's the problem I've got, whatever the issue is. For me, it was like, okay, today I've got a problem with my kids. They're driving me bananas. What am I going to do? And then I would see the squirrel, and the squirrel's like walking this tightrope, and it's just so like steady and balanced. And it's not like, it's just like so centered. And I was like, okay, be like the squirrel, and then I would notice it would help me, like just these little things. And so I started doing it more and more. And then I learned eventually, of course, that people in shamanic cultures all over the planet, there's this idea that most people have one animal, sort of spirit guardian that affiliates with them and watches over them, protects them, guides them for their entire life. And I was like, well, if I could figure out that, then maybe, maybe I would know what to do with this problem of what I'm supposed to do, with my life. And so I endeavored to go on a shamanic journey, which is basically where you listen to a drum track. I don't have my drum with me right now, but listen to a drum track, which for the science nerds out there, this particular drum beat basically alters your consciousness and sends you into a theta brainwave state, which is essentially rapid eye movement, the dream state of sleep. So you're sort of in this light trance. And of course, people have been doing this for thousands of years. Drums have been around a long time. And in that journey, I was surprised to meet this bear who just like rubbed my back. And she's like, I know you're so scared and you're so upset right now, but like, it's all going to be okay. And she kind of took me to this hilltop and showed me, that it was kind of a downhill journey, which seemed kind of like, well, that sounds not too shabby. It wasn't like she showed me Everest and like the peak and like ice picks or something. And I felt this unconditional love from her. Like I had very loving parents and came from a good home and everything. But it was like this kind of love that makes you just cry because you just know you're fully embraced and fully accepted. When I got back from the journey, I was just like, I don't know what that was, but I'm going back. Like I knew there was no proving of it or explaining it or anything like that. And I just kept revisiting her over and over again over a period of months, and eventually got so curious because she was helping me so much and make me feel so much better and giving me messages and helping me to figure out what to do, that I eventually started seeking out a teacher, a teacher who could teach me more about these ways and these realms. So that's kind of the story. That's the beginning of it. And then eventually I did call the people at work, my partners, and I was like, hey guys, I'm getting lots of cool messages from wild animals. Would it be cool if I like extend the sabbatical 3 more months? I didn't say that. I was just like, could I have 3 more months? Like not telling anybody anything because I was so worried. People thought I might be insane. And they're like, sure, no problem. And so I continued on. Eventually I went back like a couple days a week. And then by then I had entered Martha Beck's training program, and I decided that I was going to start to build a coaching practice. And then I sort of simultaneously went on this track of building a life coaching practice and stepping onto the path of spirit, which is really what's been profound. And swimming with elephants, the elephant is in the title. People might be wondering, well, where's the bear in this? But yeah, shortly after the bear showed up, I had this elephant who's named Alice, who stepped into my life, a spirit elephant. And she really, after, the mother bear sort of warmed me up and got me prepped and ready. And Alice was just like, and now it's time to just let all those diplomas go. She took them and just sort of dropped them into the river and was like, where you're going, you don't need any of that. Which was just like, really? Are you sure about that? But that felt right too. And she really encouraged me just to absolutely be myself and stop hiding who I was, which, I mean, who I am now feels pretty authentic. And I think if you knew me at my office, I mean, I was probably somewhat authentic in some interactions, but fairly suppressed in a lot of ways. Yeah. Or felt like I had to be a different version of myself and, wherever I was. And now I feel like what you see is what you get kind of everywhere.
Is where you live pretty embracing of that? Because I'm from the Midwest, and I feel like when I hear what you see is what you get, it's pretty much Midwest.
Maybe I meant it more in the sense that, like how I am right now is just like, this is who I am. And I'm not I don't feel nervous, like, oh, I've got to be a certain way because you and I are talking on YouTube or
Oh
oh,
yeah,
now
but that would be a reflection of the space I create for you, right? Because I
that's true.
feel, right? Because even me, I'm like, whatever, but then I notice I can be fully myself with you. I love being around you. I feel I'm just me and you. It's just shared journeys that create that safe space to truly explore. And I have tension because I still have people that don't want me to be me. I'm very vulnerable and they don't like it and they want me to change. But it's through the experience of knowing how deep of darkness that you can get when you're trying to mask. But it's also challenging. And I can see where things, just as you're leaning in, you know, that 24-hour, like, I feel great. And then the fear strikes. Well, because we're often concerned about, well, what's society going to say?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what?
What is, yeah.
Yeah. So
And
how,
sometimes they have an opinion, right? They tell you what they think.
yeah, and what I noticed though is that from masking, it ended up getting me into circumstances where I felt not being myself prevented the authentic connections that we have now, what led me to you. You know, I think Martha Beck's The Way of Integrity, the way that you live, the way that your life journey has played out, those two things remind me a lot, is like trying to lean in and say like, oh, this fits, this doesn't, and really tune in. Is that how that experience felt to you?
For sure. Like, I mean, I was very afraid of, yeah, what people thought of me and who am I now if I'm not a doctor? Because the other thing that happens if you're considering leaving one profession or, or you're getting a divorce or as some massive catalytic event is happening to you, your identity kind of melts down. And I remember going to parties like that spring when I was on my sabbatical and people like, so are you like not a doctor now or what are you? And I was like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, what am I doing? I'm stumbling around in the woods with my dog and I'm really confused and I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm listening to the messages of animals. I couldn't quite spit all that out to most people. Some of my really good friends did know, but I think, yeah, it takes time to get that courage and we were like, I know for myself, a lot of mental illness in my family history. And I too wondered like, is this the beginning of me going into a bipolar mania? I mean, I don't know. Like, can I even trust myself? There were some moments there where I worried about myself too, like, because nobody else was having. I remember walking around the hospital thinking, isn't everybody just wanting to get out of here? But not everybody was. They were happy at what they were doing.
Or they masked as well, right? Or we just don't know, because I share that experience and it was very detrimental. And why I'm vulnerable and open with my story is feeling so alone almost cost me my life because I felt I was weak. And I thought, am I the only one struggling? It took one physician voice to share with me that she was also struggling at the depth of which I was, to step back. And I appreciate the level that you took with your sabbatical, because when I was not well, and to your point about the identity, I didn't know who I was. So when I was losing all of my identities, it was all everything at once as well. And it felt similar to like chaos, of the unsettled feeling of I have no grounding anymore. And I was in the military losing that. I was coping with anorexia. In order to recover, I had to let go of the identity of being a very ill person, which was like a coping skill. And so if people don't understand anorexia, like it becomes an identity, and like had to release that in order to get well. And then I was losing being an oral surgeon, and I didn't want to go back to dentistry, but I wasn't yet really I finished medical school, but was I really a physician? I had done I had done dentistry. I hadn't yet done a residency, and my ex-boyfriend died, my co-resident passed away, my commander died. And I realized at those moments, seeing the fragility of life and how I had prioritized all the things that didn't matter, because we always prioritize it for the future benefit. And I'm just learning, and like my teaching to the residents or anyone is like, live while you're in training, live at every level of every experience that you're having, because you just never know. And that identity is so challenging. And I think the most grounding thing is to realize, and a lot about what this channel is releasing the titles from being a necessary part of that identity, and having that core intention of who am I, period. And then the rest of it is just an extension of what you do.
Yeah, and it's so hard because people want a label, and it's so like, it is so funny because you're like author, life coach, shamanic healer. It's just like, I mean, yeah, it's just funny. But people do need to understand something. So we need language to help us identify that. But what am I? Yeah, I'm like spirit informed, just like experiencing this beautiful world, and it's
Yeah.
beyond any limits.
And it's finding that balance too about the labels, because even having the label of being a dentist, and I'm in oral medicine, I straddle dentistry and medicine. So in my mind, I didn't feel I belonged in either. And I think it's our own mindset of allowing, like, or I could belong in both. And with life coaching, when I was looking at Martha's program, people around me all told me what they thought, and I did it anyway. And now they're like, well, thank goodness you did that, because I got my life back. And so it's just, I couldn't get myself off of her website. It's if you just get that feeling and you listen to it.
Yeah, it's going to take you great places, but we have to trust. We have to take that little leap, or those little tiny leaps. Yeah.
Yeah, I relate to a lot to what you said too about the mental health concerns about, can I trust myself? Because with anorexia, I was taught not to trust my brain. And
Yeah.
I think what I really value with the shamanic healing with Martha Beck's body compass is the reassociation with self, to really ground in all of your experiences and all of your sensations that can give you some feedback on, are you leaning into the right thing, rather than just relying on your brain. And I think for me, the healing moment was like, I had relied on my brain for so long, but my body knew it. My brain was trying to fight my body, but my body really knew what it needed, and to learn how to trust it. With the shamanic healing as an adjunct to the therapy I went to and to the life coaching that was mostly mind focused, I think what helped in our first session together was we really were intentional about, where is the void? Where was I feeling an emptiness? And really pushing inward into that self-compassion, into the void that I was having. And I do think that that drum, as a percussionist, I feel like I was called to percussion because there's something about Native American music. There's something about the shamanic, the music that you play. There's just something really special about it.
Yeah, I feel like it's so universal, like it's in our DNA, that's so comforting to us. And for like, I remember the first time I listened to the shamanic drumming, I was like, it was almost foreboding. It was like, ooh,
Yeah.
if I go there, what's going to happen? Because there's a fear too of like, if I get well and I get healed and I find out what I am supposed to do, will I have the courage to do it? Or can I even do it? Do I have what it takes to do that thing? Or would it be better to just stay back here where I'm small and, safe, and I can still go on a Disney cruise or whatever it is,
Oh my gosh, isn't that so true? Yeah, I think about that a lot. And you think about people that get their voice out there, and then you're like, well, am I going to lose my privacy? And how is it going to impact my life, and trying to lean in anyway? And I think when we decide that our messages are more important than our fears, like that's truly been what I'm like, is this message? That's how I calibrate how important the message is for me, is if I can't get it out, I'm like, I have to get it out here and push through the fear, push through the naysayers that will come. And of course, they made that positive vibe dance as a humorous outlet in order to just embrace that people are going to say things that are ridiculous. It's not to like guard against them. It's just when they come, I will just sweep them away.
I love that.
Right?
I love that, because the fears are going to come. And yeah, I mean, the biggest sign you're actually, I always say, is you're having an impact is when you get a naysayer. Because if you weren't saying anything of any import, why would you, there's nothing for anybody to say anything about. So when you get that first bad review on Amazon, for example, one of your books, and you're like, oh, it's so brutal. But it's like, well, the person's so upset by what you wrote that they actually bothered to write a 2-paragraph, like horrifying, bit by bit. But it's like, whatever you wrote, I say it disturbed them, it caused a reaction. So isn't that what we want to do as artists or creatives or transformational agents? We're here to get people to feel something, and even the naysayers are feeling something. So
yeah. And I always say, I even got a reaction on my cyberbully. I made a reel, if you people haven't seen it yet, about how bullying is often a reflection of the insecurity of the person pushing off their bullying comment, right? And so I feared when I was coming and speaking out about anorexia awareness, eating disorder awareness, I had a lot of concerns it might cause me harm based off of whatever comments were in response to me. And I had to know, I had gone through the catastrophic preparation of what comments will be most damaging to me to receive and prepare for those.
Okay.
And knowing that people, don't understand eating disorders. But anyways, I was talking about something about anti-diet culture or something like that. And the person said it's because I'm not fit enough. And I run marathons. So like, this is ridiculous. Like, this person's just ridiculous. And you don't have to run marathons, but the whole point of it was speaking out against like diet culture and how it really preys on our insecurities for the profit of the diet industry, and bringing awareness to why people often feel the need to be smaller, which is to what you're talking about. It's not body size as much as it's the shame, the fear. And like, to your point about the animals messages, like, we can learn a lot from our reactions to every message we receive. Like, oh, why is diet culture making me feel a certain way? What do they have to gain? What do I have to lose?
Yeah.
And then the bullying comment was talking about where the bullies prey on, they provide comments that reflect their insecurities. And someone said, comments like yours make social media hell. And I replied to that, and I'm like, this is nonsensical. But I said, if this is hell, you're more than welcome to leave. I wouldn't want to stay in hell. Like, I would gladly appreciate if you got off social media, especially if it's hell. Right. It's just, if we really have to take those with a grain of salt. So
yeah. Yep. Sometimes there is no response. It's just embracing them with the love, releasing them, holding them in the white light and letting them go. Right.
Positive vibes and compassion.
Yeah. Compassion. Exactly. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of, maybe people who want to have their own YouTube channel so they can get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, my sister is a comedian. She gets a lot of hecklers. She gets a lot of comments like, this comedy's, whatever, sucks. And I'm sure they say it in a much more unfriendly tone. I know they do. And, part of her is she just like challenges people. Hey, if you don't like this, go out and make your own set.
It's so funny. Yeah. And it's true in Brene Brown. I moved to Houston, and a present I was given is a cup. It says, what would Brene Brown do? Because as an introvert, that really resonates with a lot of Brene Brown. I was like, it's so important. She said, the people that aren't in the arena, those are like, that you really have to wait. The comments, like, what are these people even doing? Especially with our social media, a lot of it's said behind a screen. And
right.
Yeah. And another thing that you've created, but you have the Tiger's Nest. Can you tell people what that's all about?
Yes. Well, I've been collaborating with Inger Kenobi. Inger is like a coach, and also has a kind of a strong, she's a Buddhist, a practicing Buddhist. And I, of course, practice spirituality with the shamanic practices. And so Tiger's Nest, well, it's a beautiful monastery that's up in a very high cliff. Sort of, that's what inspired us. So a place where people go to, retreat from the world. But our idea is that if you work with your home, you can step into higher integrity with yourself by engineering your environment, by making a more friendly relationship with your space, and we're going to bring some mindfulness into it. So it's kind of going to be something very unexpected and very unusual. And we have a free class that's coming up, so you can sign up for that if you like. It's going to be 90 minutes, and we're going to, I hope, totally inspire you, connect you to the spaces that are going to, help you bring your own dreams to life and do the things that you say you want to do, but maybe aren't doing.
Having your own space, and really a lot can be said about when I moved from Michigan to where I live now. I sold everything, and it freed up my mind. So I really feel like your space is a reflection of your mind, your space. And it just has such a healing impact. If you have an organized space or a clean space, it really represents the space that you thrive in.
It totally does. And yeah, the idea is that we want to make it's kind of got a sacred twist because we're into that, right? I mean, it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but that creating this space where your whole home becomes a temple and your life kind of becomes a prayer with the way that you're keeping things and the way that you are, yeah, being intentional with everything in your home, with your life. So yeah, we're really excited. And that kind of comes, yeah, from my passion. Like ever since I was a kid, I got my first dollhouse at like age 5. And I've just been like completely bananas about house. Right now I'm sitting in my daughter's room. So this is not but this is her beautiful design.
Beautiful.
I've been obsessed with homes and how they're made and how people's personalities and their selves are reflected in them. And, sometimes they're not, and that's interesting. And like, why not? Or can we bring that out? Because like you, I believe that our homes can be these beautiful places to support us and remind us of all things that light us up, and help us do the things like if we want to have more intimate conversations, if we want to read poetry instead of being online. Like one little thing that I did this year is like in my kitchen, I have a little where I usually eat, there's like a little bookshelf, and I just put a bunch of poetry books there. And now when I sit down to eat lunch, I read some Mary Oliver, I pick up some Rumi. And in the past, I just like, just quick check on Instagram or whatever, which I love social media, but I also want to nourish my brain with beautiful, beautiful thoughts from these poets, because that's something that's important to me. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely need to channel that. I used to write poetry. I write for healing, and poetry used to be what I channeled. And in undergrad, went to a liberal arts school. And I remember because after in med school and everything, when everything started to combust a little bit, I was like, why did this happen at this time? And I think as adults, we really have to be intentional about our play and our just the things that extracurricular activities that you just were already in when you were a kid. Like you went to whatever you did as a kid, and to bring that back out. And in undergrad, what I really valued about the choice of school, it was a small school, and it forced you to take classes that were outside of your major. So I did philosophy, religion, and religion is very interesting. It was like talking about different cultural beliefs, and opened up a lot of different perspective, which I think shaped life outside of just your vocation. And I think that really catered towards when people say, when you're picking a college, make sure it's the one that you're on that campus. You're like, this is it. This feels like what I need at that time. I went to Augustana College in Illinois.
Okay.
I valued that. It was so holistic in its educational experience. And just can't say enough about when we truly bring our whole self to things. And then as our life progresses and gets more into just channeling our professional selves, we lose a lot. When I was in medical school, I went back to acting. I used to take acting class, and I lost like all my creativity. So it was really bad. And I judged that, but then I didn't notice that being burnt out and being tired and focusing so much can lose your creativity. And you're such a creative person.
But I did totally, I stopped reading for pleasure. When we had 4 kids. So not only was I like, when I wasn't doing CME and just like, reading papers and getting ready for talks and presentations in medicine, it was like, then I was like home all night, like staying up all night with kids. So one of the things that happened, and I didn't mention this, but in the 2 years preceding my sabbatical, I rediscovered art. And I kind of got this weird desire to like start gluing old timey images onto like glass plates and cups and mugs and decoupage. It's just this weird thing. And it just like, it was an obsession. So I always say to people, if you get a weird desire to do something, like follow it. And it was crazy because all the images were animals. They started out as domesticated. They were like chickens and cows and things like that. And then it was just all wild. And there were lots of elephants, and there were lots of zebras, and lots of African elephants. And on my sabbatical, which happened maybe 3 years after all that intensive decoupaging, I got invited to go negotiate a bride price with my friend for a bride in South Africa. And that's where I got to see like the first experience of working with the shaman. Yes. And we talked about it. There's a beautiful Sangoma experience that we had there. And that day, like watching that person and what they did, it just kind of, again, one of those mind-blowing moments. And we were all sitting outside in the sun after we crawled up from the hut after they did the ceremony with us. And I mean, they started to dance and they were drumming, and I mean, it just, tears were just streaming down my face. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I want more. I want to know, because this is so beautiful. And this is like the antithesis to what I've been doing.
Yeah. I was thinking, the thing you're doing right now with the 100 days of self-respecting boundaries, you have that decoupage type of artistic vibe to that. Yeah. Do you want to tell them what you're doing with that?
Yeah. So for probably the last 5 years ago, I started watching all these people doing these 100-day projects, which is basically came from this Yale professor who assigned his students do something, takes 15 minutes a day, you do it 100 days in a row. Well, it turned out to be a really powerful class, because people were like mind blown, because you create a body of work, even though it doesn't take that much time. So I finally did my first project probably 3 years ago, which what I did was I received a message from Alice the elephant every day for 100 days, which eventually got parlayed into this book, which is called How Good Are You Willing to Let It Get?
Oh, look who might have that one too.
It's like a daily sort of message from a spirit animal, mine, and then a little reflection from me and a prayer. And then I started running groups. So last year I ran, I think it was last year, the first year, but anyway, we're on year 2. So there's a bunch of us all doing it together. And my project is around setting, it's my summer of no, 100 days of self-respecting boundaries. I thought I was pretty good with boundaries, but I knew I could use a little help, because I knew there were some uncomfortable moments that I'm like, oh, I need to say no, but I want to say yes. And man, it has been so incredible. I mean, I've changed so much this summer, and it's almost shocking. Like and then I've had so many people calling me, like, and telling me and sending me messages, like, they're not commenting on the post, but they're like, I'm reading every single one of these to my Uncle Bob, and we're sharing about it. And I mean, it's so exciting, because like, I think more of us need this work than we realized.
Yeah, definitely. And that was one thing too, I didn't realize, when in coaching really helped me identify things that then I could work on backwards, right? So it's like, I know we think coaching forward, but it really helped me say, what's at the core of this? I had really poor ability to have boundaries, especially as we lose our identity and have, like, I don't know where. Actually, I just came across a Harvard Business Review article about how to mentor someone that doesn't have a clear career goal. And I read it for myself and shared it because I was like, yeah, well, because I live in ambiguity with ease now. I live very much more challenged. I have a lot more of a challenge if someone tries to channel me into something and say, you should do this. Like I did that. I know that did not turn out well. And I want to stay open to exploring, because I think the openness, I find just being open, it helps to bring people, whereas the boundaries is important, but I just mean like open and receptive to what you need. And then the boundaries allow you to choose what to really harness and what to just let go. But I was just in a protective, like I was in this very walled in space, but developing boundaries and the trust, this is all going kind of 360 with our whole conversation. Developing self-trust, having boundaries creates that safety where I can lean into fear a little bit more, because I trust that I can say no when my boundaries are being crossed.
Absolutely. And yeah, well, you're talking about a couple different things, like that multi-passionate too, or that's making me think of kind of our shared multi-passionate nature. Like, you're not just an oral surgeon or just a dentist or just, you're also a poet, and you're also a dancer, and you're also an entertainer. You're like you're a comedian, you're a coach, you're all these things. Like, it can't be. And I feel like some of us are just like that. And if we try to be too narrowly, like that was a big struggle I had when I was in the
bring out your other book.
Yes. Born to Freak, a salty primer for irrepressible humans. We will not be repressed. It's like, some of us there's so many things we can be good at and have fun with and want to share and explore and enjoy, and we should. So that kind of like that, no boundaries, no limits on what I get to do. But I remember in my Martha Beck, when I was getting trained, I had this one day and Martha was coaching me, because back in the day they would have, Martha would coach like a few people. I'm sure she still does. Well, anyway, I was one of the lucky ones. And I was like, well, I have this thing. I don't think I can be a life coach and a doctor at the same time. Like, it's really like, it's embarrassing. It's horrible. Like, I felt so polarized. And she's like, okay, if that problem could be a thing, what would it be? And I was like, and suddenly it came to me, it's like, it could be a xylophone, which is like, like a little Fisher Price you pull behind
Yeah,
you.
well, I'm a percussionist. I played xylophone. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Say more. And I'm like, well, it's got rainbow colors and you just plink. It's no problem. You just play it. And then I started to see everything I like as just one of those little plinkety plink things that I just bing, 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 bing. And I still use that now to relax myself when I'm like, wonder if I could do a class about style and fashion. Would people think I'm flaky? And then I'm like, who cares? It's just one of my little xylophone things. It's okay.
It's so funny you just said that, because I was just thinking, and I love your outfits. I feel like your 100-day thing, I feel like you mentioned that it started with wearing different clothes, right? You did that at one point, and I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with your outfits. You have the Superwoman shirt, and I just every time you had an outfit. So in high school, I was known for my outfits. My freshman year of high school, I wore outfits. They weren't just like, I mean, if anyone watches my channel now, I clearly do not. So it's different, but I loved that creative expression of self through very hot pink, very hot colors. So when I see you, it's channeling that, like, oh, I should do that. Like I appreciate it deeply. So that
we did this, we've done an authentic fashion February challenge. For 30 days, you dress up in a way that feels good to you.
Oh, wow.
That's the only thing. And then you have snap a selfie in this group. You don't have to post it anywhere except in the little group that's very safe and protected. And then you reflect on how you feel in it. I'm telling you, I was like, I think this could be fun, but I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. And it went so deep and it was so transformative, and it's so much, and also fun, because like, there are no rules. If we don't have to match what is on the magazines or what's on TV, like, who are we and what would be fun? So
yeah, I only get oral medicine and magazines, and
I bet the outfits aren't that great on oral medicine.
Yeah. Actually, there's a lot of, I wanted to be a pathologist. We have a lot of similarities. It's really crazy because I'm introverted, and I thought, well, I'm very interested in pathology, but I'm a dermatologist of the mouth that works with cancer patients. And who knows, when I try to explain to somebody what I did, I was trying to write a bio, and I just wrote human, not robot, writer and YouTuber, because I was like, I don't know what the heck I am anymore. I'm like, it was like literally trying to write it out as like, at the end of the day, we're humans, we're not robots.
Yes.
And I knew that I was going to be able to talk to you about a million different things, but I really want you to pull a card, because I know you brought your cards. If you have time, do you have time for that?
Oh, totally. We have time for that. So everybody who's listening to this or watching it right now, just think of these are the How Good Are You Willing to Let It Get deck, which you can get at shamansmarket.com right now. Think of a question you don't know the answer to that you could use some insight with. That would be one way to approach it. Or just be open to whatever the message is that you need today. Like, just ask for whatever you need to hear, whatever you need to remember. And we'll all just do this, because the card will be perfect. If we set our intention like that, the card will be perfect for all of us. So let us see all these I'm guessing we're multi-passionate physicians and medical oriented professionals. Okay. It happens to be a pachyderm. I think Alice was happy that we're talking about her, because
Nice.
Here she is. Praise life. And so I'm going to read so these were all created as part of that 100-day project a couple of years ago. Wow. And these were messages that but through drumming, received from Alice the elephant, who is a spirit elephant. Find a way each day to celebrate the sacred force that flows through everything. Play the ukulele. Generously compliment everyone you meet. Encourage flowers to bloom. Be a flash mob of one. Jillian Reigert, I think you are that. Praise life in your own way. It's why you're here. And then the prompt is, what are some ways you could praise life today? Dear God, this is such a perfect prayer for us. Show me how Goddess, or dear universe, I apologize if that word doesn't resonate with you, but Show me how I can express my wondrous and wacky divinity today. That seems to fit for, yeah.
I love those. And I love all the cards you've sent me as again, as I mentioned, I'm working with Sarah for shamanic healing. Your cards were spot on and also identified my tortoise, which was on my website. And I was, to our point, wondering like, people are gonna think I'm not professional. I have a tortoise, but it's deeply meaningful to me. I'm like, well, the people that are meant to come to me will embrace this. And it's really funny because I've met a lot of physicians who are like, you have a tortoise, that's your tortoise. And now we're talking about tortoises. And then I'm like, my people, they understand. And then what you have in your book about tortoises or turtles, it was spot on.
Yeah, and this idea that we have that we each have a special animal in spirit form that watches over us. It's like so strange. And I remember thinking when I first got into this, and I was like, this is real, this is helping me, but I'm like, maybe I'm crazy. So I'm just going to share this with a few friends, a few of them, like one was an interventional cardiologist, another was like a high power attorney, like working this super important job. And I was just like, well, let's see what they say. And that weekend, oh my gosh, like they both got, deep, profound, sweet insights. And to this day, like we still exchange photos of our special beasties that protect us and look, and it helps you to understand yourself and to radically accept each other for who we are and why we do the things we do and why we do it the way we do it, and see the beauty of that instead of see the chaos or the friction with it. So and for people who are listening, I'm guessing some of these listeners are like, I want to know who mine is. Well, you can go to my website, Follow Your Feel Good, and you can get access to a guided journey that will help you discover yours, because that's probably the number one thing I recommend to people who are like, I'm lost at sea and I don't know what to do. I'm not sure I can keep going in medicine or doing XYZ. I say, get connected and find out who's here to help you.
That was so funny. When I felt lost at sea and embraced my inner sea turtle, I was no longer lost at sea. I was just at sea. I was pleasantly roaming the sea at a very perfect pace for me. And I found safety to be the number one important thing. And I heard you say you moved a lot, and that's embraced, you have a lot of insight about your tiger's nest. They're moving a lot, and I moved a lot. And I'm like, but the sea turtle brings her home with them. So they're bringing their safety with them. And then, I have my dog Reese, which is funny because actually, along with matching your energy to your house, I find that Reese and I are a perfect fit. And he is like me in dog form. And so I'm curious, kind of like 101 Dalmatians, if people match their dog, comment below. I'm really curious because Reese is definitely me. And my ex used to tell me my first dog was me in dog form. So it's really funny. And I will share, I've been trying to create Jax, who is a singer, music. She writes songs and she sings them. She wrote the song called Victoria's Secret. And she goes in front of Victoria's Secret with a flash mob. And it's all about what she had issues with disordered eating and embracing your body, and like screw diet culture, screw Victoria's Secret for all these messages. Like they were never meant for. And I've been trying to create this reel, but it's such a meaningful song that I'm like, I need it to be like I just need to feel it truly. So I haven't been able to create my flash mob of one, but it is coming. So you had some foreshadowing.
I love that. I want to see it. That's so exciting. Yeah. And what a cool thing to write a unique song that speaks to this issue and bring it as a performance piece into the mall.
It's amazing.
Going to change lives, going to wake people up.
It's amazing. She created a YouTube video and she asked the commenters to write their messages to Victoria's Secret. And of course, we're not singling Victoria's Secret, but to the whole concept of people capitalizing on other people for creating shame within them in order to create a profit from whatever they're selling to supposedly help them through that shame. So that's my TED Talk concept. No, it's not really at all. But so you said, follow your feel good.
Follow your feel good.
We'll of course link your author link for Amazon.
Yes, thank you.
People saw I have the beginnings of a library here and they need to do the same. Highly recommend. And any last words of wisdom? I know you gave them a lot today.
I think just keep watching your channel. I'm just amazed at all the beautiful beings and all the women. Well, I've seen a lot of, I've mostly watched women. I know there have been men too, but these women physicians being so vulnerable and talking about, I just find it incredibly encouraging. And it just makes me so excited for the next generation of healthcare, because I feel like if we can talk about these things openly, our depression, our fears, our feeling of disconnection, whatever it is, like we can do great things together.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. I think we lived up to the 4th generation physician, to the shamanic healer, shamanic mentor, life coach, and someone who appreciates the shenanigans. I think we brought it
Yes,
all to the table today.
for sure.
All right.
Thank you so much, Jillian.
Right. And I appreciate the watchers for being here. Make sure to reach out to Sarah. She's amazing. And until next time.